I'll ask this, and I'll put this graphic up in a second here once I can get it up. But the question I have for the people is, what are the top three? What are your top three offseason priorities for the Lions? Like this, I'm talking about restructures, extensions, re-signs, trades, draft picks, like what they should do. If you're Brad Holmes and you have top three things, you have a top three list. What are the top three things that you're going to do this offseason? And take it away while I put this graphic up, either of you.
Do you want me to go first? I think it's pretty easy. I think it's very, very easy. Number one, I think you have to go re-sign some of these guys. Like you have to get Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Who would you re-sign though?
Well, I'm just saying extend. You need to extend some of the Panay and Amon-Ra need to get extended. That's number one. Lock those guys down for a long term. Now, if we're talking about bringing guys in and making moves, you have to. And Lucas, I mean, we're going to talk about this the next few weeks, next couple months. You have to get. What did he say? Resign CJ, extend Goff, draft.
Hey, Cooper DeJean. He's coming home. Baby. Cooper DeJean.
I just think you have to go after the corner position. You have to get a corner on defense. Yeah. Like that is like number one priority to me. If we're talking about bringing a guy in, getting a corner. I think you have to as well. Defensive line. You have to figure that out. Like the other side of Aiden Hutchinson, I don't know. Like Lucas, I know we talked about bringing in a kind of a veteran corner. I would like another big time pass rusher on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah. I would like to see them go out and do that. And then lastly, I think it's just this is kind of a simple one, but I just think get some sort of depth or get someone on that offensive line, depending on what happens with Jonah Jackson as well. You have to address that as well. Because you have that's your bread and butter is the offensive line. That's been your bread and butter all year. You're the number one you have the number one offensive line in the NFL. That is what your team and your offense is built around. You have to maintaining your offensive line every offseason is going to be a priority number one in my opinion. And then you do have to fill. And I think the two holes you have to fill is that corner position and another edge rusher. And I think that's it. And obviously extending the guys that you need to.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in lockstep with you. If I'm saying what are your top three priorities, and if I have to rank it, I think number one is signing a corner, not drafting one, signing a proven product. My dream situation would be Stephon Gilmore, because you can say about what you want about his age, but we were just talking about how many yards did Deron Bland let up? It's because he was getting targeted a whole lot more than a former All-Pro, future Hall of Fame corner in Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore, in my opinion, was the most underrated corner in football. He still has it. Secondly, would it be getting a big body defensive interior guy? I don't think they need much more pass rush moves with Aleem McNeil. They need a guy that can free up one-on-one opportunities with Aleem McNeil. Me and Jeff have talked about, I love Grover Stewart in Indianapolis. If they can draft one, but also in free agency is fine with me. And then I think you do have to, in my opinion, if you don't get an edge rusher in the first round, late in the first round, you got to get a guard. You got to get a guard to replace Jonah, because whether you like it or not, if you re-sign Jonah, which I'm iffy on, he's going to get hurt again. And if not, Graham Glasgow, eventually he's going to be out the door. So you need to get the guy that's going to replace them, get him in line, in my opinion. But I think sign veteran corner, either sign or get defensive interior, draft edge or guard. It's one of the two.
The corner and the edge to me are just like 1-2, like 1A, 1B. It's like you can't go into another season. Like last year, they thought they had the right edge rushers and the right defensive line to make a little and they were Brad was just wrong with that. Like we just didn't have the dudes. So he needs to kind of go through that again, and you need to bring someone in. You need to. Like that should be number one.
So I have three here, and I think they're similar. I think it should all be kind of similar. I mean, we all kind of watch the same season, so we kind of know like what they need. I'll say number one, I'm with you guys. I'm with Lucas. I think you said this too, Booner. Is your number one sign / draft, preferably sign, or you could do both, to be honest with you, a corner.
It's just worried. The waiting process is what scares me.
Yes, because you are correct. Some corners, especially you take them in the first round late, those guys, you're going to have to give them some time. Not everyone can just walk on and be Sauce Gardner. It's much harder to do that. But number one for me is sign / draft a cornerback.
Yep.
Corner is the worst position group on this roster by far. Like it's a problem, and it was exposed in Sunday's game. So that's number one. Number two is a different route, but I'm still going to say it because I don't know what the future holds, but you have to plan for Ben Johnson's departure in some way.
I like it.
Like you have to have, whether it's Tanner having a conversation with Tanner and being like, listen, man, you're guaranteed this job if you stay with us. Finding finding who's next. And if he leaves, that's really a priority because you're going to have to get that figured out. It's a top 5 offense last 2 years. It's your bread and butter. And the last thing you need is regression. And not just regression, but like significant regression. So number 2 for me would be planning. Oh, yeah. And then they fire both their coordinators basically the next season. That's a problem. So number 2 would be finding a replacement for Ben Johnson. Number 3 is the extensions. Extensions that you got to get Goff locked up. You got to get St. Brown locked up. You got to get Sewell locked up. And then you start to be like, how much money's left for a Jonah Jackson? How much money's left for a CJ Gardner-Johnson? Like those 3 are the big 3. Like everyone else, there's food at the dinner table. We're going to set a big portion aside for those 3, and then we'll kind of figure out the rest. So those are my 3. Of course, there's other priorities, like you mentioned it, like a Grover Stewart, a defensive tackle, another defensive end. Like there's other things, but those are by far my top 3. Like I think we all agree, corner. If they get
streaming number 1.
Dude, if they get a cover, like a legit cover corner, this team, like this defense, maybe you add another defensive end, Aleem, Hutch,
changes the defense. Can we
drastic.
really think about like
drastically?
Aaron Glenn at points this year had this defense rolling with what he had, and he didn't have a lot. Like we've gotten those arguments all year long that it was like, is it personnel? Is it scheme? It came down to it was personnel. He's changed. It was both kind of because he didn't have the personnel, and then he ended up changing the scheme, and it ended up working in their favor. So it ended up helping. So it was kind of both in a sense. But if you think about this, and AG is still here next year, and you just fill some of these holes in on the defense, corner, edge rusher, this defense could be actually really scary. Like they have dudes, and if you get CJ back, like this defense could be one of those defenses where people are like, don't know if I want to play against this Lions defense. You just didn't have you just were missing like 2 or 3 pieces on defense this year that could have put you over the top and really helped you. And you probably wouldn't even have to worry in that San Fran game if you had a corner and you had another edge rusher.
No, you're right. I see another comment here. Someone put it, and I put it up earlier about finding a future center replacement. I think that's like an underrated part of this offseason, to be honest with you. Like
Frank could retire this year. You never know, just because his injuries are like they already talked about it going into the season. He can't have surgery on some of it at this point. It's too far gone.
That's why Booner's point about like you have to make sure this offensive line, like it's like upkeep. You have to make sure you have guys ready. That's huge.
Especially if you re-sign Jared Goff, you have to make sure your offensive line is always good.
Yes.
Like that's going to be a number 1 priority. It's like, yes, if you're going to re-sign Jared Goff for a couple more years, that offensive line better have some turnaround in that offensive line.
Jesse Adams, Frank has 2 years at most. Like, it's not if, it's when. Like he's gone. And I know Graham. Here's Johnny says Graham does okay, et cetera. Like I like Graham. He's going to play a couple more years in this league, I would assume. But he's like he's your future just guard until his play drops off. But you need another guard.
And he's a free agent too. He's a free agent this year too.
Yeah,
I'd bring him back for another year. Hey, do you guys think?
I'd bring him back too.
Do you think Colby Sorsdale will ever pan out? He played a couple times this year. You got to think he's very raw, a rookie. We came from William and Mary. So
it's just not when you talk about having quarterback like Jared Goff. I'm not really risking putting Colby Sorsdale out there against the San Francisco 49ers. And I get your point.
No. Real quick.
I would prefer to find somebody in front of Colby.
But this is what I'm saying is he came from William and Mary, like a small college. Like he has never played at this level. He should have never played this year. Like that should have never been a thing. So everyone got that perception of him of what he was raw as a rookie. If you give him like a year or two, like there's a reason they drafted him.
Hey, you sound like me earlier with Broderick Martin, and Lucas shut that down pretty quick. Like
Lucas will shut it down, and then we'll be wrong in 2 years.
Not shutting it down. He was just like,
do not tell me you're taking a Colby Sorsdal hill.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm just saying there's a reason he got drafted. There's a reason they trusted him.
There absolutely is.
And then his development, obviously he wasn't able to get developed at all. He got thrown in the fire out of nowhere. Like that development, potentially could, I'm not talking about this year or next year. I'm saying in the future, if we're talking about replacements on this offensive line, that's a guy they did use a draft pick on, and he did play some games. And his development got slowed down and basically halted because he had to just get thrown in the fire.